Hitchhiked away across USA. Plucked her eyebrows on the way, shaved her legs, and then he was a she. She says, hey babe, take a walk on the wild side. Said, hey honey, take a walk on the wild side. Candy came from out on the island. In the back room she was everybody's darling, but she never lost her head. Even when she was giving head, she says, hey babe, take a walk on the wild side. Said, hey babe, take a walk on the wild side. And the colored girls go do 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 do. Joe never once gave it away. Everybody had to pay and pay. A hustle here and a hustle there. New York City is the place where they said, hey babe, take a walk on the wild side. I said, hey Joe, take a walk on the wild side. Sugar Plum Fairy came and hit the streets, looking for soul food and a place to eat. Went to the Apollo, you should have seen him go, go, go. They said, hey sugar, take a walk on the wild side. I said, hey babe, take a walk on the wild side. Alright. Huh. Jackie is just speeding away. Thought she was James Dean for a day. Then I guess she had to crash. Valium would have helped that fast. She said, hey babe, take a walk on the wild side. I said, hey honey, take a walk on the wild side. And the colored girls say, do 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 do.
we're going to ask Catherine to come up. What show are you taking?
I seem to be doing okay with that.
You're running the show. You're the most important thing. Okay.
Hi, everyone. I'm Lisa Claus from the Cleveland Music Industry Group on Facebook. I see some familiar faces out there. And welcome. Thanks for coming out. The main reason that we put this together was really to try to get everybody in the same room and to get everybody talking. Seems to be one of the biggest issues in Cleveland is finding out about great events and opportunities like the day of or like right after it happened, and then being upset that you couldn't have been a part of that if you would have known sooner. So we wanted to bring some key people from the music industry here in Cleveland out to talk with everybody, just to share what kind of opportunities we have in the immediate, just for this summer and into the fall, for musicians and music industry professionals and just lovers of Cleveland music to become involved. So we have Sean Watterson here from Happy Dog. And he's key for Save Our Stages, as is Cindy Barber from Beachland. And Cindy is going to share about Cleveland Rocks, nonprofit, which is doing a lot of great work. We have Amanda Nix and Michael McFarland, who are they are in charge of Listen CLE for local musicians, getting their music heard through in various locations in Cleveland, which I'll tell you more about. And Amanda did some work on finding out about a little bit about what it was like to be a busking musician during the NFL draft. So she has some good and bad to share about that, lessons learned and ways to become involved in the future. And Catherine Klusman from the Rock Hall, who has her coworkers are out in the audience as well. So she's going to speak on opportunities to become involved in the Rock Hall with the upcoming events over the summer, and then especially in the fall during induction week. So I think we'll start with, do you want to, Cindy? Let's start with Cindy, since we're in her house here, and she will speak about Cleveland Rocks Foundation.
Yeah, and I just wanted to, this is an experiment. This is the first time we're doing this, and I think Lisa's idea is that we're going to do this monthly and have a different list of speakers, right? And I think the Grog Shop offered to do this next month at the B-side. But format is still a little flexible. But I put this microphone up here so that, and we're live streaming this, so it'll be recorded. So we really want to make sure if you do have questions that you come up to the microphone as the cameras are on you. And we want to have this be interactive, and we may get a few people to step up and say what they're doing too when we get finished. I'm going to try to keep my update a little short. So I started a nonprofit. I mean, I co-own the Beachland, and we're just finally getting open here after 15 months with full capacity, which is completely scary at the same time. Joyful, because we had 100 people in here, which is the most that we've had in this room since March 15th of last year. And that was for the Corey Grinder CD release party. And there were actually people dancing who knew that could happen again? One of the things that we are doing with Cleveland Rocks, which is a nonprofit that I started in 2012, and with COVID, we really were able to pivot really quickly when everything shut down, because we realized that everybody was in a panic in the entire music industry across the city. Like, everybody lost their gigs, and all of the musicians and venue workers that we all employ are basically casual labor, a lot of them 1099 employees, so it wasn't going to be easy for them to jump on and get unemployment right away. So we decided to start a music relief fund. So we just immediately started asking for funds, and we were able, over the course of the beginning days, we were able to raise, I think about $40,000 almost totally, and we're able to give grants of about $300 to $500 to 92 different musicians over the course of time. And we've decided that that's kind of important to have a fund. In other cities, I know in Austin, they have a musicians relief fund, so in case somebody has a medical emergency, they could get resources. So we're going to try to continue that. That's one thing that we're going to keep doing. The other thing that we did this last year was to start the Safe Cle Venues Fund, because the venues were ending up being in trouble too. And our friend Angie Hedrick, who is an amazing marketing genius, but also a real big music lover, called us up and said, you know, I want to do an auction and help you guys. So she got memorabilia to donate, and we were able to raise about $25,000 that got split up between the Happy Dog and the Grog Shop and the Beachland and the Bop Stop. And we continue to raise money, and when the lights come on again, which you will see Mike McFarland at the very beginning of, that ended up raising about $10,000. Again, you know, as a nonprofit, we're not supposed to raise money for a for-profit organization, but it was an emergency, and we were able to do that. So one of the things that, you know, now the venues are going to start getting this shuttered venues relief money, and I'm hoping that we can all stick together and keep money coming through the nonprofit that will help the musicians in the music scene to tackle other problems as we go along. One of the things that just got started that we're trying to do is a music incubator program, and Corey Grinder is the first musician that's part of that. So we were able to loan him $2,000 at a 1% interest rate, so that he could take that money and go out on a 3-week tour and assure himself that he has cash flow. You know, that he can buy food for his band, that he can put gas in his bus and keep him going. It's much like what John Panza does with his foundation, which is a grant, and this will be more of a loan. So with those two things going on in Cleveland, we should be able to really start supporting some musicians and help keep them going and try to, I mean, the goal, right, is to help people make a living at this and look at it as a job and a way to get bands on the map. And one of the things that I was incredibly sad about in my lifetime of running the Beachland was, I mean, we got the Black Keys started. I helped get them their first manager and get them out on the road. But they were not comfortable staying in Cleveland because we don't have an infrastructure here that is that they could talk to and share things at their level. So that's why they ended up leaving town and going to Nashville. So the goal is to have rehearsal spaces, right? Have an economy here where we have booking agents. We can send people out on tours. We can you can get the recognition at the Rock Hall. you can be on the playlist that these guys are promoting. So we're starting to get there. You know, the business infrastructure is starting, and I'm hoping that Cleveland Rocks can be the infrastructure of a nonprofit, and other people who have ideas could run things by us because we already have an established nonprofit. So I'm open to a lot of ideas. Lisa's reminding me that I should talk about the live streaming, because that's the other thing that we did during COVID, is that we really tried to push live streaming and kept our concerts going. And that's what we're also trying to build a grant structure so that we can do live streaming and recording here at the Beachland, and then at all the other venues in town as well, as much as we possibly can. So that's one goal.
So I think we're going to do a Q&A after each speaker, and I apologize, I can't see in the audience, but is Afi Scruggs here yet, or Stacy, or Donnie from Musical.ly? Are any of them here yet?
I don't see anybody here. I'll try to text her.
Yeah, Afi was coming a little bit later. They're part of Musical.ly in Cleveland, which is they just received nonprofit status, and they especially empower women of color is their focus. So hopefully Afi will, when she arrives, she'll speak maybe towards the end. And I also forgot to mention Michael McCarland is up here as well with Amanda for Listen CLE. So does anybody have any questions for Cindy?
We're good? Great, your turn.
Okay. And everybody knows Sean from the Happy Dog.
Yep. Thank you. First off, thanks everybody who got involved in the Save Our Stages campaign and reached out to our reps. We wouldn't have gotten that legislation passed if we didn't get both senators in Ohio. We got, we're one of the few states that actually has a Republican and a Democratic senator, and to have both of them co-sponsoring the legislation was big. So thank you. I think what I want to talk about is advocacy a little bit more broadly. Save Our Stages got the most attention because it had the catchiest hashtag, and it was the biggest amount of money. Ultimately, it's $16.25 billion, which is 100 times the annual budget of the National Endowment for the Arts last year. So it's the biggest arts funding bill that has ever passed in this country by miles and miles and miles. And it's really important that the reason it got passed was because of bands and venues and fans of music reaching out. This is not something that the pure nonprofit arts community has been able to pull off in any other time. And it only happens because of COVID. But what I think the biggest takeaway from the advocacy work that's been going on, and I'll walk through at the local, the state, and then the federal level, is that I think we have officially changed the conversation from arts and culture is nonprofits, high arts, the art museum, the orchestra. It's us. It's you who are working musicians, and it's venues that may be for profit but are probably a lot less profitable than big institutions, that are keys to neighborhoods like Waterloo and Gordon Square and Birdtown and Coventry. And I think that message is getting across, and I think the nonprofit community is accepting for the first time that by working together we can get more done, rather than looking at it as there's only so much money, stay out because we already don't have enough money. This has changed the conversation. And Cleveland, Cuyahoga County, actually more than Cleveland, is is one of the examples, because I've been involved with clubs all across the country through National Independent Venue Association. We were able, with CARES Act funding, to get funding not just for venues, which was great, but for individual artists, many of whom were musicians. And we also added in production companies, so like the Vertical Sounds and the sound, stage, and lighting folks. Not a lot of other communities across the country provided that kind of funding with their CARES Act funding. And we were able to do it because we had a foot in the door with the people who were making those decisions. And we kicked that door open, and we made sure that the county executive saw at the Rock Hall a couple of weeks ago that it really affected a bunch of people, and hopefully we made him feel real good about using that money in that way, because there are American Rescue Plan dollars that the county's going to get, and that the city of Cleveland's going to get, city of Lakewood, city of Cleveland Heights, and we need to be organized to get that money. We need to be able to tell the story about how important it was we got the money the last time around and how we still need it. And some of that is going to be different people than the first time through, people who fell through the cracks, because hopefully none of us have actually gotten any of the Shuttered Venue Operator grant money yet. We fortunately got notice that we will. We just don't have the money yet. But there will be people who fall through the cracks, and those are the people we need to take care of, and that's where the advocacy work needs to be focused. So if you're looking to figure out how do I get involved in the advocacy piece of that, having people ready to talk to county council people and the county executive, and especially working with this new organization called Assembly for the Arts. It's the replacement for what was Arts Cleveland. It's really important we establish a good relationship early on with this new organization and make clear that, hey, we are part of the arts and culture community. And we expect when there's funding for arts and culture that it includes our part of that pie. So that's the local level. The state level, we were able to get legislation introduced that kind of mirrored the venue and producer and promoter stuff that happened in Cuyahoga County at the state level, but it didn't pass. But same thing applies at the state level. The state is getting billions in American Rescue Plan dollars, and those decisions are getting made without our input right now. And we need to have a collective voice. We need to be talking to our representatives to let them know, hey, we need it, we deserve it, we're important to the cultural life of the state and of the city, and we're important to the economic life of our neighborhoods. So I would just put that out there. And then at the federal level, like I say, the Save Our Stages program has been, it's been the greatest arts bill ever passed, and B, it's been the biggest disaster in implementation in the history of government, if you ask me right now. We're going to keep working to make sure that it works, but again, it's something that's going to help a lot of people, but it's not going to help everybody who needs to be helped. So when we're thinking about what we're going to ask for at the city level and the county level and the state level, we got to really pay attention to who's been left out and make sure that those are the folks that dollars go to. So, because otherwise it's just not fair, and that's not how this community runs. That's not the ethic that any of us got involved in this for. It's all about lifting each other up and making sure everybody makes it. So I guess that's my advocacy spiel. Thank you. Oh, well, while they're doing that, get involved with Assembly for the Arts. It's a new organization. We need musicians on the board and on committees of that organization. We need venue owners, we need bookstore owners, we need record store owners, we need people who are producing music, recording music, pressing music. We need all of those people represented, because that's the only way people are going to understand what it is we need and what it is we bring to the table. So happy to talk with folks afterwards if you want to figure out how do we get as many people stacked in there as we can.
Are you members of Musical.ly down here who just walked in? Yes. Come on up.
Wait, I don't know how.
Who is representing Musical.ly for, I know Afi was supposed to come and she's running late. I cannot see who's in the audience. Do you have someone willing to come speak?
We're actually not, we're not a part of Musical.ly yet.
Oh, I thought.
I misunderstood it.
Okay, I thought that you were, okay. I apologize, I can't see with the lights here.
We're good. Yeah, we're good.
Okay. So Sean, I had a question for you. What's the best way to stay on top of the new organization?
Definitely follow their Facebook page. Their new executive director just joined in the last 2 weeks. I think if we can use the Facebook group to amplify, they have any calls for that they have, if we can use the Cleveland Music Industry Facebook page to get that out, and then we'll be real clear and direct, what action we want to take to get involved. And I think at some point at one of these, it would be great, and I think he would be a similar organization for the city of Newark in New Jersey, and he's moving back home, and he's open to hearing about the commercial side of arts and culture and not just the nonprofit side. And he's just being inclusive in every way that needs to happen.
And the mayor race too, that's
I think
part of that.
I think we all collectively need to hold the candidates accountable. I mean, we need to know where they stand on the issues that affect us before we're down to picking between two of them. And so I think at some point inviting some of those folks to address this group, or at least sit in on this group and hear our issues, so that we can each figure out, is this person really going to pay attention to our issues, especially since there's still going to be American Rescue Plan dollars at stake, and there's a lot that the city can do to make things easier, like busking regulation, like noise complaints when it comes to venues and new real estate development going up by old venues, permits for outdoor events and festivals, all that kind of stuff is just going to take having somebody who understands that sitting in the mayor's seat. And I think it's more about the substance, and it's less about, do we have a music czar? Is that position created in a new administration, or a nightlife czar, or anything like that? Because that's only going to be as good as the person who gets appointed to it. If we're not continually engaged and involved, and we try and pawn it off on somebody else, we're put into it. So I think being very active and getting in, that the next administration values what we do more than perhaps the current and former administrations. Not that they don't value it, but it is what it is.
Does anyone else have questions for Sean, or are we ready to move on?
Did anybody get money from the county? I mean, you don't have to put your hand up. I did. Could have had it. I hope people did. I hope people did get money from the county. And if you didn't, then, and you should have, then that's what we need to focus on in terms of this American Rescue Plan dollars. So if you're a working musician and you didn't get money the last time around, we need to know who you are so we can let them know you fell through the cracks and they need to set aside funding, additional funding for individual artists beyond what they did last time. I can be kind of pushy.
We need that.
Someone's got it.
You've done a good job of that, John.
So we'll move on to Amanda Nix and Michael McFarland from Listen CLE. And they could share more about what they do and about busking as well, which I know it doesn't all fall on you, but just because you experienced
I'm
the
happy
most
to talk
recent.
about it. So I'm Amanda Nix. Hi, I'll do the busking thing real quick, and then we'll talk about Listen CLE. So the busking questions that have come up, a lot of performers don't know what busking is, don't know what busking is allowed. We've seen so many other music cities that have this really robust street performance culture, and Cleveland simply doesn't, but it's legal. The Saxman Law, if any of you are familiar with the Saxman Law, has made it very legal for performers to be out there on the streets doing their thing, not just musicians, but circus performers, dancers. I'm actually one of those, so that's where my interest comes, but my partner is a musician, and I work with many, many musicians and performers. So when the draft was coming around and we had that great meeting with Destination Cleveland, Anson is here, so thank you for getting a lot of us hooked up to some really great things and supporting some programs. They helped bring in some answers to the biggest questions that we have on what is busking in Cleveland? What does that look like? What can it look like? Answering questions as to what counts as fair game public property and where does that territory end? What times, what locations, what kind of power might be available for people who need amplification? How do we put this out there and show the great talent that Cleveland has in its day-to-day life out there in live performances? And we're still working on answering some of those questions, but we did get to try out, I think we had 16 different acts that performed under the bridge at West 3rd, heading down towards the stadium during the draft. We had 3 straight days of all kinds of things. We literally had jugglers, circus performers, stilt walkers, musicians, full bands, soloists. We had a Taiwanese erhu player out there. We had a little bit of everything, and everyone was well received. And that's a huge win on the front of getting people out there and performing with this very, very visible, very, very engaging level of the culture. And that does kind of tie into Listen CLE, which we're going to talk a little bit more in depth about. Listen CLE is one of the answers to the question, how do we get more people listening and understanding and supporting Cleveland music? I've been involved in the Cleveland arts and culture industry from a lot of different sides, and I loved your point about how arts and culture and music are one, but they really aren't. And I kind of have this unique position where I'm involved in both sides, and I'm finding ways to help tie them together. It's been a lot of fun, and hopefully maybe we can connect later on some of that. But to get back to the relevant conundrum, we've heard from every different group that I've worked with, how do we bring in more listeners? Because of course, whether you're a musician or a venue, your success is based on the number of people who listen to you and support you, be it coming to concerts and supporting the people at the venues, or buying your CDs, coming to your shows, whatever it is. How do we get more people listening? And we decided to try and tackle that problem by creating Listen CLE, which are right now Spotify-based playlists that are all Cleveland music. I'm going to have Michael tell you a little more about the details of those playlists in a minute here. But the goal is to compile these playlists that are 6 to 8 hours long right now, some of them even longer, and to push these actively into Cleveland establishments. We want to reach the people. We can put as many bands on this stage as you want, but if the people down the street don't know about that band, are they coming here? So the question is, how do we get more people to listen? And our answer is, let's put playlists in local stores, restaurants, hotel lobbies. We were just talking about into little boutique shops and maybe even into some of the bigger retail stores in the area, and to put signage up and make it clear that when you are shopping, you are also listening local. So we're trying to find new ears, the average everyday Clevelander who doesn't know how incredibly great this music scene here is. And Michael's gonna tell you a little bit more about how our playlists approach this a little bit differently to hopefully create a more enticing way to bring those businesses on board. We're also advocating for legal streaming of this music, which means that businesses are paying for the rights to the music, which means that artists are getting paid their royalties for their music. So we're trying to create a system that not only brings in more listeners, but actively puts money back in the pockets of the musicians too. Michael, tell us about the playlist.
All right, so I'm going to rewind back a little bit and talk about some of the inspiration for Listen Sealy and how that translated into the playlists that we have now. So in the summer of 2019, Amanda and I were on vacation traveling in Europe. And we had a day in Scotland that was kind of rainy, and well, it's Scotland, so not that surprising. But we'd been walking all around. I hadn't had a day of not doing much, so we decided to take in a movie. We were sitting in a cafe outside the movie theater, and I noticed that the music that was playing sounded kind of top 40-ish, but every song had a Scottish accent to it, and a little light went on of like, this is music that's from, an area that doesn't have a population that much greater than Cuyahoga County, but it's getting played in, in cafes and probably other places because they have local regional music being played. So we were talking about playlists and how so very often playlists are made that are just like, here's Cleveland music, you should listen to it because it's from Cleveland, and that there's a downfall there because while there's so much great music, it doesn't all necessarily sit nicely next to each other. And so we thought, what about moods? What if we started making playlists based not on a specific genre or just based on being from around Cleveland, but a mood like chill or energy boost or feel good, and starting to collect songs from Northeast Ohio artists that sit well together, even if they're not of the same genre, but manage to create a mood. And we thought that that could work well for businesses because, in the morning you could put the chill playlist on while people are starting to wake up. Maybe the afternoon you need a little bit of that energy boost to fight off the post-lunch drowsies. And so you could switch between playlists to fit either the mood throughout the day or the mood that you're trying to establish with your specific business. So if it's, kind of a hip, upbeat thing, that energy boost playlist might be on all day. Interestingly, from as far as subscribers just on Spotify, the Misery Loves Company playlist has our most subscribers. So it's all sad songs spanning all kinds of genres, but if people are feeling kind of down.
It's great for funeral homes.
Exactly. Trying to reach out to all of the different types of local businesses, not just coffee shops. So the idea behind creating these 6 to 8 hour long playlists was, if you think about a shift working at say, a coffee shop, the idea is that we want the people working at these businesses not to get sick of the local music as well. So if you have a playlist that you're not going to hear any repeats over the course of your shift, that's going to help with adoption and the workers not being like, are we listening to the same thing again today? So that was sort of, we started out by building these playlists, just putting out the asks onto Facebook of all right, we're trying to find sad songs, we're trying to find upbeat songs. And I've discovered so much music from around Northeast Ohio that I had no idea about by creating these playlists. And it's just, it's reinforced the idea that the music that's being created here can be the soundtrack to the lives of everyday Clevelanders, and there's no reason that you shouldn't walk into, an art gallery or a boutique or a coffee shop or any number of places, while you're waiting outside a theater, and hear music that was created here. And so we're starting to really get ready for the rollout to a lot more venues. Amanda can tell you a little bit about our test run that we did towards the end of last year and how that turned out.
Yeah, we originally wanted to roll this out to businesses in, March of 2020. It went great. But as things started to kind of get towards the end of the year, we had the kind of the luck to be connected with a woman named Ash O'Connor who started Made Cleveland, which is a boutique store that pulls together Cleveland makers, artists and artisans and crafters and stuff, and to create kind of a mobile and sometimes prolonged stationary kind of best of Cleveland crafting kind of a store. And she had a test run for a few months. I think she went November through about March of this year on Coventry. And she was like, I want local music. What do I do? Amanda, where do I get local music? I'm like, well, we can help you with that. So she actually put up signage. She had a big poster. She had cards that we gave her that she was putting in every single shopper's bag. And she played Listen CLE playlists every single day for 5 months at this store, and we got a lot of new leads on new music. We had other people who were asking, where do I find these bands? I mean, I actually was helping her in the store a few days just to help out a friend, and I had shoppers that saw the sign and said, this is local music. Do you sell the CDs? And we had a small section of CDs. We didn't manage to compile as many as we would have liked, but we were able to say, here's our music selection, and his CDs got bought, a couple other people's CDs got bought, and people were like, how do I find this? Right there on the sign, listencle.com. So we did see an uptick in the number of subscribers to the playlists. We did have people who were actively inquiring on the website about how to get involved. And now, thankfully, we've had a little bit of interest from Destination Cleveland, thanks Anson, from Cleveland Rocks, Past, Present, Future. We're talking to them about how we can really throw this out there wide open. We're looking for a little bit of funding so we can offer a bit of a stipend to early adopter businesses. We want to help them cover the costs of, legally streaming is a really important part of this for us. We want to make sure that the businesses who are doing this are doing it right, and that the artists whose music is being used to curate a mood in somebody's store, they're getting what they are due for their music being used in someone else's business. So it's very important to us to be able to say, okay, the cost is this much, we're going to cover half of that, and we're going to help you get this started. And we believe that the response from their customers is going to be enough to encourage them to keep doing it. But even if that isn't enough, we're really, really hoping that saying, hey, for 50% of every dime that you sink into, paying for the licensing, it's going back to Cleveland musicians. And we have done some of the math on some of the programs. It is 50% of their costs going right back in to the local community and directly into musicians' pockets. So we're hoping to build that a lot stronger as things start to open up post-COVID. And if you know any businesses that are interested in maybe hopping on and trying this out, you can go to listencle.com, and there's forms on there for businesses that are interested, for musicians that are interested, and to submit tracks. So if you're a musician, you got something that's out that's new, let us know. Michael checks them monthly or bi-monthly at this point.
It's usually about 2 months. I go through and do an update of all of the new releases that I've seen come through my Facebook feed. I keep a running list. But if I haven't seen your music, if you haven't seen a tag saying hey, we just added such and such to our playlist this month, send us a message. We'd love to get your music involved. And a lot of times it might not be the song you think is the single on your record that fits on the playlist. It might be that deep cut 7 down there.
Yeah, we listen to all of it. We don't stop at what you said to listen to.
Right.
We don't listen to you.
We'll listen to you, but we might not listen to you. So please send it our way. We're always looking to discover new music that we can incorporate into this program, because the idea is getting ears on what's being created here, and the people that aren't coming to shows at the Beachland because they don't know the awesome bands that are playing on this stage, getting them tuned into what's happening.
I had a question. Now that we're starting to get back into some events, if business conferences and that sort of thing starts to come back, do you think it's possible to start getting hooked up have Listen CLE get hooked up with like events that are coming about that are.
So are you talking about like providing like background music at like a conference and things like that? Or are you talking
Right,
about
like in the, because they're usually like in hotels and those kinds of places.
We definitely want to target like hotels and convention centers. Any place that has a lobby that's going to see a lot of traffic is ideal for it, as long as there's a place to put up signage. We want to make sure that we're not just pumping the music in, but we're providing a way for people who say, I don't think I've heard this song before and it's awesome. Who is this? To be able to get back to that music. So we want to make sure that we're targeting places that can have that additional return. But we've also actually been asked by a couple of different vending events and stuff to provide live music as well. So we're also dabbling a little bit and helping take that connection of, oh, you listen to the playlist and now you want to book a band? Yeah, we can help with that. So a little bit of both on there. We definitely want this music to be anywhere that someone's going to turn on a radio station. We'd rather have it be a Cleveland band and not just the top 40 everyone hears in their car. So we've got feelers out for a lot of different things, and as the program builds and this becomes more of a, hey, people do this, let's do this, let's also help support it, we're hoping it's going to really, it's that snowball down the hill, right? We all know snowballs in Cleveland.
You have any other questions?
I'm curious, are the bands and the genres really broad scope, like including polka and classical and jazz?
Generally, we're limited to what is on Spotify and what we know about, which is why it's really important to be sending in links if you are, especially if you know people who are doing music that is not usually grabbed by things. But I do know that we definitely have jazz. We do have quite a variety. As long as we've seen it or heard about it, it generally goes on a playlist,
Yeah, absolutely. And for those that are streaming that couldn't hear the question, it was, do we have, how large is the variety of genres that are included in the playlist? Do you have polka and jazz? And yeah, if it is on Spotify and it's streamable, we will listen to it and see if we can slot it in. One of my favorite acts is a group called Golems of the Red Planet that are kind of like surf klezmer, and a few of their tracks have found their way onto the Energy Boost playlist, and so there's room for all genres, all styles. There's probably somewhere for it.
And we really probably should put some Weird Al on there because he was in Euclid for a while.
Do you have any plans to eventually include other platforms rather than Spotify?
So for the live stream, the question is, do we have any plans to include other platforms? We have thought about it. We've looked into it. One of the biggest issues with other platforms is we want to make sure, again, that things are done legally and that there is a payback to the artist. And we've done a lot of research into how to make sure royalties are being paid properly. And right now, Spotify for Business, which is now called
Soundtrack Your Brand.
Mm-hmm. They have so far the best rate of payout and the lowest cost of entry. It's only $50 a month, which is great. And like I said, we did the math. More than 50% of that goes back to artists if you're playing it, assuming a 8-hour day. 12-hour day over 5 days a week. Mm-hmm. It'd be more than 50% of that money would go back to artists. So right now, we really like that Spotify handles all of that. You don't have to buy into all the different licensing things. They handle it all together. The music is there. A lot of people upload on it. We have had some people ask us about doing a radio station and coordinating with artists to bring in the raw files to actually have like a database of all the music. But then we would have to also handle how are they getting paid royalties, how are they tracking it, and it's become a question of building a giant system. And I think right now, for getting it out there and making it happen, we're very action oriented. We want to see this happen. We've really stuck to Spotify. It's been really, really quick, easy, simple, generally easy to understand, generally easy to explain to the next person. You sign up for this, you pay this, you get access to all of these, you set it up, and it's done. So we really are focusing right now on keeping it on Spotify. I would love to be able to put it other places, but we don't have a good enough picture of how that looks, across, figuring out where everybody's listed on that, how to make playlists that we can have the royalties tracked and everything. So right now we're pretty heavily focusing on Spotify, but if we're starting to see results and people are really buying into let's stream Cleveland music, we're going to find ways to keep making it more accessible, for sure.
And I think it's worth touching a little bit. We've mentioned a few times that the focus is on legal streaming. The majority of small businesses right now that are playing music over their sound systems are actually not doing so legally. So they have not paid for the licenses for BMI, ASCAP, and CSAC, which are the main performing rights organizations. And so they could at any moment get hit with a big bill from those organizations for playing music without the proper rights to it. So Soundtrack Your Brand, we are not in any way affiliated with them. We're not getting kickbacks.
We just researched a lot.
We wouldn't mind getting kickbacks, but we're not getting kickbacks.
Yeah, they haven't responded to me.
But they're the business wing of Spotify, and so a subscription to Soundtrack Your Brand covers all of those blanket licenses for the music that's going to play through that service. So it takes a lot of the weight of bookkeeping, of handling the proper payouts for royalties. And since the royalty rate is higher for business streaming than it is for personal streaming, if they're using it properly, then we get to that greater than 50% of the cost of that monthly subscription is going directly back into the pockets of people in Cleveland that are creating that music.
So I want to re-emphasize one last time that we're trying to create some funds to help with a stipend to cover that. If you know of anybody who wants to donate and invest, please send them our way too. Thanks.
And just to piggyback on what Amanda and Michael were saying, I've found this in the Facebook group as well. A lot of artists aren't aware of how to collect royalties and registering for ASCAP and BMI, the performance rights organizations. So educationally, I think just to suggest to Cindy, Cleveland Rocks, or Catherine at the Rock Hall that is a need, that there are a lot, just education on collecting royalties. That's, I've seen it come up a lot.
Yeah, there are a lot of musicians leaving money on the table, and if they don't collect that, then it's probably just going to end up getting distributed to the really, really top 40 artists. So there is money in the performing rights organizations that's supposed to go to artists, but if they're not reporting and claiming that, then they're not going to get paid.
Okay, I think we'll move on to Catherine Klusman from the Rock Hall.
Hi there. Tough act to follow. That's some pretty impressive stuff. Many of you probably know my partner at the Rock Hall, Lisa V. She's hoping to come a little bit later, but couldn't make it right off the bat today. So I'm here speaking on her behalf, but also the Rock Hall's behalf. I work with Lisa in events and programming, and as you guys may know, the last couple of years before COVID, we were really looking and building a robust summer schedule of live music that had been growing the last couple of years. Last year we were able, when we reopened in June, to still have some live music. We had it in our smaller beer garden stage on our plaza on, what was it, Fridays and Saturdays last summer, and then we took a break for the winter and did a lot of virtual stuff, but we're really excited. Come July 1st, we'll be back to live music on our plaza, much like a lot of the other venues are getting excited to have everybody back, not only the musicians, but the fans and the audiences. So we will have live music on Thursday and Friday nights. Thursday nights are free local shows, so they're completely for free for anybody to come down and enjoy. Friday nights are ticketed, and they are a little bit more regional shows. In addition to that, we also have live music that'll be on during the afternoons. Most of those slots are currently filled by our resident musician program, which I'll talk about in a minute. They'll be performing on Thursday, Fridays, and Saturdays in the afternoon, and then early Friday evenings before the Friday night show on our bigger stage. So actually the bigger stage I think is getting installed now on our plaza, which we're very excited about. We didn't have it last year. So we're pretty thrilled about that. As far as opportunities for musicians in Cleveland and things that we can do, we recently opened before COVID our garage exhibit, and that's something where people who are visiting the Rock Hall can actually pick up instruments and interact with the different instruments, learn how to play them, jam, and the folks that are employed in that space are all very skilled musicians. So those are positions we're constantly hiring for, where you would spend time actually just working with people, teaching them how to play the drums, the guitar, keys, bass, even just sitting there and playing music with fans that come from all over the world, probably all over the country this summer, but hopefully we'll get back to all over the world soon. So that's something that we're really excited. That actually just reopened after COVID yesterday, and we already had tons of people coming through and playing, and it was really exciting to see that space. It was a space that we worked really hard to open, and we were so excited, and it just had so much life to it, because you come to the Rock Hall and you hear music and you see it, but it was the first time that just any day anybody could come and play music. So then when that had to close for obvious safety reasons, it was a huge bummer for everybody. So we were very happy that we got to reopen that yesterday. Additionally, like I mentioned, we have a relatively new artist in residency program. We started it last year. Real weird year to start an artist in residency program. Would not recommend, but we made it work. And then we spent the winter months sort of adding on and really doing it justice. We didn't really get to do it to the level we wanted to last year. So we have the whole program is designed for up-and-coming musicians in the Northeast Ohio region. Not exclusively. If we have someone who is outside of that region, we'll definitely still give them, a listen and see what works best. But it's mainly targeted towards Northeast Ohio musicians. And the idea is that they're coming on board, and not only are they playing throughout the summer and developing their skills and their songwriting and things like that, but they're also meeting with industry professionals and learning about all the different facets. As a matter of fact, we were just here on Thursday meeting with Cindy. We also stopped by the Grog Shop and the House of Blues to do venue tours so that our 3 artists in residence could learn all about how they function and all the important factors there. They meet with folks with PR, they meet with folks on merchandising, they meet with folks on the whole legal copywriting aspect as well, talking about ASCAP and BMI. And so they really get all of those things. And the whole goal is that at the end of the summer, they're really walking away with tangible resources and tools to be able to take with them to the next level of their music career. We'll be recording their music, we'll be making a music video, so we're doing all of these things really to sort of foster these great up-and-coming musicians and hopefully help them, go to the next step and go further with their career. I think those are inductions. So we're hosting inductions in Cleveland. We're very excited. It'll be October 30th, right? Yes, looking at my calendar in my head. October 30th at Rocket Mortgage, so we're very excited about that. But we will still be doing a lot of stuff leading up to it. We had some really exciting plans in spring 2020 to do a lot of things with different venues. We haven't figured out exactly how we're going to approach that this year. We actually have a meeting next week to start those conversations of what is that going to look like, how are we going to really activate music in the city. We'll still do a large celebration day on our plaza. It'll be the Sunday before this year with all sorts of live music and different things going on. I was just talking to Lisa about the busking and how we can sort of help activate that. Before COVID hit, we had hotels that were asking about musicians and how we could get them in their lobbies and things like that. So these are all things that we get approached to all the time. So there's definitely ways that we can connect musicians and work with that pool of people who are busking or talk about the really strategic places in Cleveland where those artists will be not the artists, where the people who are visiting Cleveland for inductions will be staying and what will be going on, so that we can do some really good targeted stuff to really build that busking culture here in Cleveland, which I love. I think that's gonna be great. So those are sort of the general gists. As far as submitting to play at the Rock Hall, we're not quite to the level we would like this summer, so we have some things set, but we did some website updates between all of this, and we will be posting a submission form. It'll go back up on our website probably this winter, so anybody who's interested in playing at the Rock Hall can submit to play live music, and we go through and listen to them all. Lisa and I usually in the same office together, which is way more fun than separately in our houses and then talking about them. Hopefully we'll get back to that again. But we listened through them all, and we put together, at least mostly, a really great show. And so we're hoping to get back to even more of that. But so we can definitely share with the group come when that gets posted, so that people can start submitting their music. But those are sort of what we've got kicking right now at the Rock Hall.
Do you have people coming through who ask about local music? I'm curious, who are not from here, who say, hey, we're in town and we want to
Yeah, we
catch
do a
show.
little bit. And that's something I think it would be really great. We do a little bit, and the tricky part is that it's a lot of our onstage staff that are answering those questions, and so it tends to be whoever is on stage and sort of knows. But what we do have in the morning is a sound check meeting with all the onstage staff. And so something that might be really great is if we have sort of what's going on either that upcoming weekend or that night, that we can sort of share with that crew before they start their shift so that they can share those things. Because what it tends to happen, as you guys all know, is it's whatever someone heard about, and then like you were just saying, like the next day it's like, oh, what was happening? Who was playing? Where did that happen? It happens everywhere. So yeah, if we can figure out ways to get more of our on-stage crew who are actually doing all those guest interactions to be aware of that, I mean, that would be incredible, and that's something that I think would be awesome.
We were on our previous phone call that we had, a Zoom call. We were talking with Destination Cleveland, and we brought up about hotels and having something like a nicely made brochure available for hotel guests, like sitting on their bed. Wonder if something similar, if that gets going, something similar that you could have at the Rock Hall where it would be updated music that you could just either hand out or have it available for someone to share.
Yeah,
beside your
absolutely.
staff.
Because of COVID, what we did, at the time, we're not handing out anything, but we really relied heavily on QR codes like most places did to get museum guides and all that. So even if we aren't quite at the point yet where we're doing more like handout stuff, we definitely have the ability to sort of do things like that, which I think would be great.
Any other questions for Catherine?
Yeah. Thanks.
Hi.
Hi.
This is scary as hell.
Imagine being us.
Just so you know,
No,
I just
kidding.
been set up.
Need a spotlight on.
Good God. Okay. Karen.
Catherine.
Catherine.
That's okay.
I'm sorry.
No, don't worry about it.
I know you don't have these answers, and I'm kind of putting you on the spot. But my first one was,
I'll try.
If the Rock Hall, I assume the Rock Hall has some resources and is kind of one of the music tourist destinations in our town. So I love the idea. I was going to ask you. My first question was, even if they had like an electronic little thing in the lobby that scrolled through the week's calendar of local clubs. My second thought was when you're talking about these up-and-coming artists, and I don't know if I'm still up-and-coming or not, but if they ever thought about doing some outreach or things like that for community musicians, like half of what you said for what sounds like probably young musicians could benefit so many people in town, and I could see them doing open classes on this and writing it off as a community outreach or something like that.
So I oversee that program. It's like I said, it's new. We started last year, and it was. I like to think of last year as sort of like a pre-year for a lot of reasons. It was great, but we just sort of like. We're figuring stuff out for many reasons last year. But yeah, so actually 2 of the resident musicians are here tonight. One couldn't make it. But what I was just telling them last night, we were doing a virtual songwriting workshop last night. This is brand new for us. And I am constantly looking for ways to grow this program and figure it out. Last year we had 2 musicians, this year we're 3, so we're growing by a little bit, but we also are doing so much more this year with them. And we are doing some really great sessions that are really beneficial to people. And so as we sort of develop what this program is, I am very open to ideas. I also oversee all of our community outreach. So what you're saying is like music to my ears. I'm like, let's do some community stuff. Let's do some education stuff. We can definitely talk about that. I was just telling Lisa before this, one of the things I do with my community outreach is I meet with organizations and people and hear their ideas and see how we can make that happen. And sometimes it's right away, sometimes it's next month, sometimes it's a whole new idea we come up with together. So all of that stuff sounds really cool. And I do love the idea of figuring out how we can take all this great information that we're tapping into through this program and figuring out ways to figure out resources or things like that to share with the greater community. Not that we could do it necessarily tomorrow, but maybe we can figure out a way to sort of pave a way to do that.
I look forward to hearing about it tomorrow.
Yeah, and I will add 5:30, right? We'll share it at 5:30 tomorrow. I'll have it done by then. I did want to add, because I didn't mention it, those live music performances and those garage positions and the artist residency, those are all paid programs. it's just really important, as you guys all know, to pay people who play music.
Yeah.
So I just want to make sure that they stress that we're not just expecting people to come play because it's the Rock Hall or because you're going to get information and education. You're going to get paid to play.
Yeah. Oh, thank you very much. I have one more quick one. And you kind of segued for me.
Great.
When you guys are talking about busking, and I think you guys talked about it, and you talked about hotels asking for maybe buskers, or is that assuming tips or is that paid? And you can answer. I'll sit down. You can answer this. But my thought is there some thought about a fund that maybe eventually people are signing up or being asked to do that, and it's not, and I might be wrong, but I think of that as just somebody with a hat out on the street.
Yeah.
And, like 20 years ago, I used to play downtown all the time at different places, and it was all paid through the Music Performance Trust Fund. And people that walked by thought it was busking, but I'd get paid really well.
So
you know.
I'll just mention at the Rock Hall what we do, and then I'll let you talk about the greater
I'll sit
busking.
down. Thank you.
Yeah, no, great questions. I appreciate it. So as far as just sort of we have sort of in our minds sort of two segments of the kind of live music that we do. One of it is shows that we're purposely advertising and drawing an audience for. Those will be like our Thursday or Friday nights, or we have bigger shows, things like that. And then there's a lot of just our daytime atmospheric music, where we're getting those people from around the country who are visiting the Rock Hall, exposure to music, but then also getting the musicians exposure as well. So we do pay them for their performance, but then we also welcome them to put out a tip jar or what have you and collect tips for that. So that's sort of how we do it at the Rock Hall. But
So for the more general sense, I mean, busking is at its heart meant to be an unpaid, go out there, put out the hat, play for tips. But there's, you know, we noticed this especially for while we were performing under the bridge during the draft. We saw a lot of people come back and be like, wow, cool, wallet, open, no cash. We're in an increasingly cashless society, and busking for tips is not the same as when everybody used to have, you know, change in their pocket and cash on hand. We do try to put up signs for virtual tip jars. That was something, I think, do you see Meg back there for 48 Hour Fest? That was really, really key during a lot of virtual performances, was creating virtual tip jars so people could pay on Venmo, PayPal, you know, use their credit card and still contribute. But, you know, there is a big difference between someone being able to toss a few dollars in. And when we did the draft test, another big, huge thank you to Destination Cleveland. They helped us find some funding, so we were able to pay a stipend to everyone who did perform. And I thought that was a very important part of getting this started, getting people more aware. You know, those people who, God, it was heartbreaking to watch somebody be like, I want to give you money, but I have none. And I'm like, I want your money, please bring me some. You know, in a culture where that really isn't the thing, we do, and we still want to have that vibrancy until we can train people to maybe have a few dollars when you go downtown, because who knows what you might see. I do think it's important for us to find some funding and be able to, you know, create some kind of a stipend fund. And that is, one of the things that I'm really trying to do about busking is build a guide, but also to see where the resources are and having partnerships with Destination Cleveland, perhaps with the Rock Hall. You know, I've been talking to somebody at Public Square a little bit, getting more of these organizations on board to make sure there's space, make sure there's safety, power if possible. You know, all of these things kind of factor into a larger culture that, you know, many cities do have a fund for it. Like you said, there's been a fund in the past. And I think we need to, it's often one of those things where it's harder to do it without the funding, but until you can prove that it's something that people want, it's hard to get the funding. So we're somewhere in between that. It's been really cool to have a few advocates who are willing to put their money with where their support is, and that's, you know, so much of arts and culture is being able to find that funding, convincing somebody who does have money that this is where their money should go. And that's definitely going to be a priority as I'm working to build this and working on partnerships to make sure that artists who are going out there on the street corner, you know, for an hour or two, it's never just the hour that you're sitting there, right? It's the parking and the driving and the hauling your stuff. You know, one of the things we got feedback from on the draft thing was, would have been nice to have a loading zone, Well, yes, but you're busking. You're on a street corner. You're doing this out there in public, and you may have to haul your stuff from a garage 3 blocks away to get to the good spot. So finding a way to compensate people not only for the time and talent that they're providing, but also for the endeavor of going out there it would really help launch a lot more of this culture. And again, until we can maybe make it a thing where everyone knows, hey, if you're going downtown, who knows who you're going to see? Bring some cash, toss it in their basket. I know when I lived in Chicago, every time we went down, the Millionaire Mile or whatever it is on Magnificent Mile, thank you, Magnificent Mile. We always knew, bring cash, because you might see, the sax man out there, you might see a close-up magician, you might see who knows, and you'll want to be able to appreciate that. So I think if we can establish that culture and kind of subtly train people for that, but also, we've talked, Lisa mentioned, and a couple other people have mentioned, education for musicians is also a big part of it. Hey, guess what? You can put a little sandwich board out there with your PayPal and your Venmo and your Cash App, and maybe people will do it that way. QR codes for everything. QR code to pay me, QR code to pay him, QR code. Making it accessible for people who don't carry cash is also another part of it. So as we develop this, some of these best practices will come into play. I really do hope we can find some consistent funding. I do know that there are some different events downtown and organizations like Sparks in the City and a couple other things where they do coordinated paid street performances. But the beauty kind of busking is that people can just go do it when they can do it. And so trying to find a way to make that not just accessible, but also ultimately profitable is definitely a question that we have to ask and figure out some answers to.
And
May I really?
I was just going to mention, as far as coordinating with hotels, especially around inductions, like I said, we're just sort of starting those conversations about what we can do come fall to sort of help activate the stuff around the city. And frankly, in my mind, a hotel can pay the musician. They shouldn't just be busking. They're not a nonprofit. They are a big hotel, whether they're a big or small hotel. So as we start those conversations and are talking about reaching out to hotels or having hotels reach out to us and looking at a pool of musicians who are interested in doing that, those are things that can be on the forefront. Yeah, we do have this great pool of musicians. This is what it's going to cost to have one come to you. This is how you would go through. This is who you're going to contact. This is how you see what music that is. All of that is stuff that we can definitely develop and build on.
I'm going to let Michael talk in a second here because he has something to say. But I also want to throw out there that, kind of along the lines of, a hotel should be able to pay someone. We are seeing, since we started pushing that word busking during the draft, I'm seeing more and more places that are having buskers night at their venue. And in some cases, they are paying the artist, but encouraging people to think about, hey, this is a culture of busking. When there's a jar out there, when somebody's got the hat out or their case open, you put money in that. Now, I love that people who are calling it busking night are providing some money for the musicians. It is helping train that. But if you are hiring a performer or you are inviting a performer to come perform at your space, it is a really important thing that you're still paying them for their service and not just saying, it's tips only. So we're kind of trying to find that balance between, is it busking, is it paid? I think, especially in the early days, these events where it's buskers night and we're paying the artist at least a minimum is a really good thing.
And I just wanted to add on the idea of, kind of training the audience of what to expect. So I lived in Asheville, North Carolina for 3 years that has an incredibly vibrant busking culture. And that's actually one of the tourist attractions to Asheville is come downtown, you're going to see busking near this park or at this corner or right across from the Vance Monument, which is no longer there anymore. But that's one of the things that people are going there expecting. There are crowds that will form in those areas specifically to catch buskers, and they know bring cash because that's how these people are managing to do this to support themselves. So that idea of establishing in people's minds, if you're going downtown, you're probably going to see some people with their guitar cases out playing music, or performing street performing magicians or acrobats or anything like that. Getting that in people's minds, it does work. If that's what they're expecting, they will have money with them. I've seen it.
And I just wanted to add really quick one thing, that I think that one of the things, in piggybacking on Sean's advocacy, I mean, we all pay admission tax fees, and wouldn't it be great if some of that admission tax fees got diverted in the city of Cleveland to busking fees instead? So we could use the fees to pay people. The other thing I wanted to just talk about is that the nonprofit is also like trying to look at how do we create an app that integrates all of the different venue calendars together so that you could look at a date and see what's playing at the Happy Dog, what's at the Beachland. We're all on different platforms, so we're just in the starting stages to try to figure out how do we get grant funding and get a tech person to help us do that.
And I was going to speak on what Sean said as well, with all of that money that came into the city and to the county, and then with the new arts organization in terms of advocacy, and people are having conversations about where is that funding going to be dispersed. I think really investing in the art scene and pushing that with mayoral candidates, city council, the new arts organization to, maybe develop a fund, especially since one existed before, for busking. It sounds like there is money out there. It's just the squeaky wheel gets the grease, I guess. Have enough people reminding them. So we have one last speaker, Afi Scruggs from Music.cle. Music.cle. Do you say Music.cle? I'm sorry, I was thinking Listen CLE and then Music.cle.
I'm sorry I'm late. I thought I had bricked my new Mac Mini. So I had to unbrick it. And that's why I'm late. But Music.cle started as a Facebook group. I need to give a shout out to the woman who launched it. Her name is Stacy Richardson. She couldn't be here tonight. She's very well known in the music community. She's been a background singer for Gerald Levert. She's regularly called to do backgrounds for the Rock Hall when they have people like John Legend, Stevie Wonder, Bill Withers. She does backgrounds and she hires backgrounds. But she started a Facebook group that she thought was just going to be a bunch of friends to promote and provide a platform for women of color who are performers and musicians and instrumentalists here, because she had seen through her years that the women of color were just being ignored across the board. And what she thought was going to be a private Facebook group ballooned to 200 people. It is now a nonprofit, and it has widened so that it is open to women musicians, instrumentalists, vocalists here in Cleveland, although we do have some people who were from Cleveland and have moved away to Atlanta, but still one of the main foci is amplifying the concerns and promoting women of color who are musicians and performers here. I'm one of the administrators of the Facebook page. Unfortunately, Stacy and the other administrator, Donnie, couldn't be here tonight. One of the things that we really do is we provide a platform to vent. A safe space, because we know how musicians are, and y'all complain about us and we complain about you, and what starts in Music.cle stays in Music.cle. But we also make it a point to make sure that the membership, and now it's over 300 people, 300 women, knows about opportunities like we're talking about here. The efforts of the Rock Hall to involve local musicians, what Amanda and Michael are doing with busking, what Cindy is doing, what Lisa is doing in order to build a music sphere here, a musical ecological system here, because we're finding that what often happens in Cleveland is that we are a city of niches. And so this little group on the west side knows about this, and this group on the east side knows about this. And then in the west side group, maybe the punk musicians know about that, but the rock musicians don't. And then the R&B musicians know about this, and the gospel musicians don't. The other thing that we do is we do try to collaborate so that there is a unification of efforts like you're seeing now. And we too have noted that the need for musician education is just huge. So many of our members have basic questions. They didn't know, for example, that if they are performing live music and that they are a member of a PRO, they can then upload their playlist and get paid to perform their own music. So we are doing some of those efforts too. Stacy, I know, I don't want to speak for her, but I know with her background, she is really looking to be a resource to help members learn, to try to create nights to spotlight the women and the talent of women here. So we will be reaching out to different club owners to see if we can do a ladies' night. The point being that the backup band would be female women instrumentalists as well as women vocalists. I see Amanda going, both. So that it's a true ladies' night. It's just not giving ladies a discount so we can get guys in here to sell drinks. So those are some of the efforts of Musically. The organization as a nonprofit is relatively new, less than a year old, but the Facebook group, I think, is about 3 years old by now. So I'd like to answer any questions or any observations. I can take them back to my collaborators. And thank you for allowing me to present, and thank you for your patience. And yes, my Mac Mini does work now.
Any questions for Afi? It's something that I've thought about since I started the music industry Facebook group over a year ago now. I was seeing in the very beginning, I was hearing a lot of discussion about, again, about what you were saying about the different cliques, in that a lot of people seem to be interested in wanting to cross over into seeing other types of music. And I think, I guess trying to figure out how to do that is where I think intentions are good, and then people, are starting to get that's why I had, been bringing up about getting everybody together again, was because I felt like as soon as the doors open up after COVID, all of a sudden it was like a switch went off, and it's like, oh no, we're going to all go back into our same patterns again, and we met so many great people through this, and I don't want everybody to just separate again. And so it just reminded me of the very beginning when we came together, that trying to get people to, so I'm not really sure how to do that exactly yet, how to promote to groups that wouldn't normally, are there collaborations that could be put together that wouldn't normally happen? Where and how does that happen?
One thing I'm seeing is that we are members of various groups. So I belong to the group you started, you belong to Musically. I think, Amanda, you belong to Musically. I don't know whether Cindy does.
I don't think I'm on there yet.
Yeah. And so what I'm seeing happen is, because now that we are joining each other's organizations, we are posting to different groups. And so just me personally, in the short time I've been out kind of performing and trying to get information, I'm seeing more integration of information that people are sharing. I know as an administrator, I make a point to try to share opportunities, because the other thing, let me just be real, we're here, but the majority of us in our profession, we just want a gig. Let's just be real. We just want a gig. So you know, I'm making a point to share opportunities about how to submit music, how to submit for festivals. I hear that a lot. You know, there's a festival over there. I didn't even know about it. How can my band play? So I want to say I just appreciate some of the things I'm hearing, because we do take that information back and we share it. And we share those opportunities.
Pans is not going to get up here and talk about it, but I think one of the things that we do have is Lottery League. And Lottery League has the potential to bring more people from different genres together to start building some of those relationships. And I don't know if Lottery League's firing up. I'm just looking back at you, putting you on the spot, but not even that you're running or anything. Yeah. But I mean, I think that's one thing that we can really put a focus on, trying to make sure that people who have not participated in Lottery League before, different genres, different communities, know that it's something that is open to everybody, and will start opening more doors for making relationships between groups so that we can get more people playing. All right. I got them. All right.
Thanks, Sean. I'm John Panza from Panza Foundation. Thank you. To that one person, thank you. Sean's mention of Lottery League, I think, is really important, because I think it actually does play into, because Effie, you've been a part of Lottery League, and we're the new financial arm for Lottery League, and I think it's important to recognize that there are opportunities like Lottery League in town for people to get out of their comfort zone and become part of, you know, these kind of like pre-made groups to perform and meet other musicians and see what else is going on. I think one of the challenges of Lottery League has been a diversity issue, which is something we've talked about. And that diversity issue hits on multiple levels. And I know this is something that Key and I have talked about actually quite often. I think one of the challenges of anything in Cleveland is connecting those different groups, those different, you know, I don't want to call them silos, because then I sound like some, you know, stupid business person, but they're silos, why not? But I think one of the challenges we face is connecting to different parts of the city, the two halves of the Cuyahoga, as it were, and then also within, you know, between genres and things like that. We here at Panza Foundation, we've tried to do that as best we possibly can by selecting bands that come from multiple areas, but our range is very limited because we only pick independent bands, we pick bands that are, you know, very, somewhat narrow, although we've had a lot of diversity. But I do think what Afi is talking about is something that I am very interested in, which is finding women of color, finding, you know, especially women of color, to get more actively involved in the more, let's say, the more underground aspects of our scene. And that's something I think we can talk about. So thank you, Sean, for putting me on the spot, and I appreciate that. Thank you.
I'd like to tack onto that just again a reminder from earlier about the thought about not just cross-pollinating between the music groups, but cross-pollinating between arts and culture groups as well. And I think that is something that I know it's one of the reasons I became a member of Musical.ly, was to bring some of the other events that don't historically maybe have live music or have music opportunities, and trying to advocate for those events that are very arts and culture focused to also incorporate more live music. And I think that that's a really powerful way to start bringing more people together, is to, you know, if you are doing any kind of event, regardless of it, I've seen a couple people who are combining more poetry and music, combining art shows and music, farmers markets and music. I think this is a really great way to kind of burst some of those bubbles and get everything kind of more connected, and bringing everything into the kind of the same sphere. We're kind of all in this arts and culture thing together, but if we've got our Venn diagram all over the place, let's smush it and make the whole thing, you know, all overlap. So I think that's another part of it, is not just bridging groups within the music community, but bridging to arts and culture groups without, and that's going to bring everything even more full circle.
Does anybody have questions for anybody here? Any thoughts that popped into your heads that we haven't covered? Or are we, I think this gives us a good start as to what to follow up on. Oh, there's somebody.
Hello, everyone. There we go. I guess my question is, I have a lot, but we'll start with this one. Use of local radio stations, especially college radio stations and public radio stations, I think is an important part. I mean, how I found out about quite a few local bands, like when I was in high school, was college radio. So, I mean, any thoughts on using that as a outlet?
I'd like to say something. In my other life, I'm a journalist. I hope I don't have radio programmers here. I wouldn't abandon college radio. I know WJCU has Neo Ohio Rocks, I think. And Jason is very good about, Jason Myers is excellent, as a matter of fact, about trying to program, indie music or, local musicians. I know that Carol Anthony used to do it on Diversified Inc., but she doesn't do that on JCU anymore, and I'm not sure whether she's going to start it. But I do want to point out that the media landscape in radio is moving away from radio and into podcasting. So that presents, I think, problems for us with music because of royalties. But I really think that for some of us who are musicians, maybe podcasting would be a better opportunity, not just to get our stuff played, but to create programming that we could use to widen exposure of all of us. And Cindy's going to say something, so I'm not going to say anymore.
I just wanted to say we do have a radio represented here at WBWC. I think there's about 3 or 4 people from Berea, from Baldwin Wallace over here. And I just wanted to also add that I think college radio in Cleveland is incredible. We have really great college radio, and in some ways they're in danger because those colleges may end up selling off those broadcasting systems because they need money, and we need to encourage and write and support all of those stations and keep them around because it's really an important infrastructure in this town.
I'd like to add one more thing, too. I don't know how many of you all know this, but WKSU has expanded its arts coverage. And so they have a podcast and a show. And they are actively looking for people. And Amanda Rabinowitz is the one person that you can contact, and I cannot remember.
Shuttle or Shuffle?
It's called Shuffle. Mm-hmm. And if you go on their site and look for Shuffle and look for the contact people, they just put out a call or post saying if you have any new music coming out or if you have anything you want publicized, please fill out, please let them know. I know for IdeaStream Public Media now, it used to be WCPN, David C. Barnett is still doing arts coverage, and Dave DiOrio are still doing arts coverage, so you can also send not your music, but your EPKs, your press releases, those kinds of things to them. And, see, they also have an opportunity to perform, but, you talk to them about that.
Hello, panel. I apologize, I got here a little late. I wish I was here on time, because really only want to make a comment. And I think this ought to happen at least once a month, or if it could happen weekly, yeah, but that's not realistic. This is a jewel of information that you guys are sharing, but just the fact that there's 40-plus people out here listening to this means that obviously this is well needed and long overdue, I would say, for Cleveland. Before I say anything else, my name is Napoleon. I operate a boutique production company, Media Aquarium Studios, and I do an event called International Earport, which ironically is a blend of multi-genres. I think several people mentioned that. Currently, we do it at Now That's Class, but we've had a portion of that event at every venue, including this one, for the last 10 years. So diversity is very well received, I think, from local artists, because that's pretty much all we have for audience. But not to be long-winded, I just wanted to say that this is, I think, very important, and if there's some way that this can happen again soon, I think it would be even more well-attended.
I think Lisa's intention is to do this once a month, right? I mean, and I think the Grog Shop volunteered to do it next, so I think it'll be at the B side, and we'll just have to work it out.
Yep, we'll work out the details on that, and if it's monthly, yeah. It just seems to flow, just like it did with the Cleveland Rocks stuff we did over the year. It's like it just kind of takes on a life of its own, I think, as long as we all keep coming to these. Any other questions?
If you have suggestions of people who should be asked to share what they're doing, please let Lisa know, maybe through the Facebook page. I think we should get an update on recording studios, right? Try to figure out what those people are doing and invite people.
Yeah, and if anybody is not in the Facebook group, it's just Cleveland Music Industry. You can look it up and request to join.
Good evening, guys. How are you? So my name is Charles Pratt. I am founder and head engineer of a newer recording studio here called Breakthrough Sounds. We're located in Valley View. One of our big initiatives that we want to do that, mind you, I'm also an artist myself. I come from the artist community, which was a really big push in wanting to open a recording studio, because I noticed that as an artist, there are a lot of recording studios, but a lot of them may be too expensive, or they might be not that expensive, but also not that great of quality. But one of the biggest things that we want to focus on, though we don't represent any individual artists, we want to push the local music scene forward. We want to offer opportunities at our facility, not just to come and record. Of course, we want you to come and record, but when you come, we want you to be able to have resources. We want you to be able to find, like, your organization's information and actually be able to have a contact person's name, a contact person's phone number, and email address. So my question for you guys is, what do you think, what position do you think recording studios would be able to help in and offer? Because another thing that we're also focusing on is having like live open mic events and jam sessions monthly where musicians from all over the city can come and just network and have fun and play and, you know, all this different stuff. So where would that fit in with, and how, as a recording studio, especially a newer recording studio, how will we really be able to thrust that forward to the local community and actually offer it as an option that wasn't there before?
I would love to have like a network of recording studios in town, and I've been sort of thinking about, what if we had sort of an Airbnb app that had recording studio time and what was available in the city and what the resources are, and you could just go and book it. And you could discount your space depending on what the demand was, so that you're always booked, but it may be at a different rate. And that's my latest thinking.
Can I say this as an artist? I would love if recording studios just had a little content thing on their websites, what to expect from a recording studio, what you should do to be ready for going into the studio. And the other thing is, maybe even, I've seen this on some recording studios, but it would be nice if we had a listing of recording studios by genre. You know, because I've learned the hard way that I do blues, and so maybe I don't need to go to the recording studio that does more hip hop. So, I mean, and this is the artist in me talking. So even those kinds of things, how to prepare. Again, we're talking about education, how to prepare for a session in the recording studio, what I should expect, what I should bring, what you will do for me, what I should do for you. And I think that would make a lot of our lives easier, because I hear things both ways. So that's just me. That's just my suggestion.
Sort of piggybacking a little bit on what Afi had to say, in addition to what to expect going into the studio, I think providing some information about what to do once they've got the recorded music is also really important, because there are a lot of artists, especially younger artists, that are going into the studio for the first time, that to them the audio recording in their head is that's the end product. And there are so many more things that go into a successful release than just having the music sound amazing. Like, making it sound amazing, that's part of what you do, but there's also the opportunity to provide information about some of the things we've talked about with performing rights organizations. Getting your songs registered with one of those, and then when you're going out and performing those, you can collect the royalties from them. There are so many things about being a performing musician that I've picked up from going to conferences around the country and watching panels much like this when I was younger, sharing their knowledge with me. And I think that as someone who's interacting with an artist at the step right before that music reaches the world, you're in a really special place to help educate musicians about the best way to approach that, and also potentially to network the recording artists with photographers, with visual artists to do their album artwork, or the artwork for the single or whatever, and people that can help them with marketing or booking or anything like that. So there's this larger solar system, if you will, of creatives that orbit around this kernel of music. And if you can help make those connections and impart that knowledge, then your clients will be better prepared to go out and share their music in the best possible way, make money off of it, and have money to come back and pay you to record the next album.
And one last question for you guys, because though we are newer, we've been blessed. We just opened in 2019, but we've had over 500 different clients who have come to us. We typically stay fairly booked up, but one of my biggest focuses is less on necessarily being booked up, however, letting our artist community know that we are here. One of the biggest things that, like you just said, is having, that knowledge base. And that's something that we're working on right now to deliver to our clients, sometime this year, to where they can, come to us and learn of these different resources, and we can put this stuff in their hands. So I guess to sum my question up is, what would you suggest for a recording studio because of course we have, advertising and Facebook and Instagram, all the general nice stuff, but as far as getting in the community, what would you suggest to be some ways to, let artists know, like, hey, yeah, we're not just trying to take your money, we actually want to help, push you forward?
I think that's actually kind of a good thought to have in mind as we look at this kind of programming right here moving forward, is we're having these industry nights, we're having kind of meet and greets and talking about where the opportunities in the whole ecosystem, I think was the word Afi used, and I liked that, the whole ecosystem of the music industry here, to have people come up and talk about the importance of marketing, the importance of good promo photos, the importance of a good EPK. Talk about those things up here, and then have, time for different, almost like a little mini convention or something, like a little business convention, networking event, where you can set up. I have a recording studio. We offer this, and we connect you to these. We can help get you set up for that. And having people understand the importance. Like, I think Michael had a really good point. A lot of people. This happens in art. This happens in all kinds of things. I have a really cool product. Now what? And I'm a marketer. That's my day job. That's actually his day job too. That's why we like to harp on that. But marketing is the make or break between I have a great product and I have a successful product. And I think that is the gap that most magicians, y'all are wizards out here making this music, but for real, a lot of the music made in Cleveland is quite magical. Musicians is the word I was looking for. I think that is the piece that's lacking the most. I think Michael had a great point that if you as a studio are able to set people up for the marketing piece, I think that will distinguish you among competitors. That's my marketing advice, distinguish yourself from competitors. But how to show that, I think, is through networking events. And I think creating a platform like this for people to, give, mini presentations on, okay, marketing includes a good EPK, which includes good photos and good sound samples and good quotes. How do you, another thing is, how do you shop around for quotes? How do you get people to listen to your music and write reviews? These kinds of pieces, I think having networking events that not just talk about why that's important, but connect people to how that, having a really good mix, having excellent recordings that are mixed well. Even some people don't have that. Even some big people don't have that. And so making sure that there are, that's what you do. That's a part of marketing, is to have a good product. So, I think having some more, maybe we can find a way to incorporate networking events into more of these panels, and have the panels not just be the organizations that are doing things, but to have people representing the power of a step on the path. Might be a good thing to do. Just a thought on that.
Real quick, I also want to, since we touched on the topic of resources, I want to bring up the repository that Cleveland Rocks Past, Present, and Future that Lisa is in process of updating through the Facebook group of all of these community resources, studios, festivals, all of that. So, Lisa, if you wanted to talk a little bit about what you're doing to update that might be a great opportunity.
Yeah, it's just a resource guide that was handed to Cleveland Rocks, and it'll be up on the website. They're just updating, actually I'm not the one updating it, I'm helping the person who's going to be updating it, and I'm just posting different categories in the Facebook group to say, can you update or add to, because this is from 5-6 years ago, I think, so some of the businesses that are listed might not be in existence anymore. And then there's obviously new businesses, so you'd want to get on. I think I'm actually just about ready to post the recording studio. I'm in the last 2 categories, and I think recording studios is one that I'm going to post in the next couple of days. So just be sure to get on the Facebook group, on the Cleveland Music Industry group, and add your studio to that as a start. And then I think what everybody seems to be saying here is a combination of education. We need to have the education here, just the very basic, covering the basics, and then networking and having the opportunities so that musicians can learn what are the recording studios in Cleveland. Because they might not know, other than looking up you just look up online and cross your fingers, or you ask somebody. And so to have a place where you can go and say, okay, there's going to be all these recording studios are going to have their tables set up, or just some kind of all the different marketing. That's that infrastructure that we need here in Cleveland, is the professional piece. You have the great talent, nobody questions the talent that we have here, but it's taking it to the next level, and not necessarily like having to look outside of Cleveland, but who do we have in Cleveland that could provide those services to help musicians, like Cindy was saying, you know, how could we have kept the Black Keys here in Cleveland? But people need to hear about like studios like yours, and right now people don't really know. There's not a super easy way for them to hear about that. So.
And real quick, I'd like to mention that as far as the way that, you know, providing education without a sales pitch, I recorded 2 of my records with a guy named Jason Rubel based out of Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, because at a conference, he gave this amazing talk about how you should make a record. No sales pitch at the end, nothing like that. It was just like, these are the ways to approach it before, during, and after. And I wanted to go talk to that guy because, you know, he had a beat on something that nobody else was talking about, which was the holistic view of what making music and then sharing it is about. So, you know, education and sharing that knowledge can lead to that new field of customers.
Thank you, God. God bless you guys. Thank you.
Hi guys, I'm Megan Stupka. I wanted to address something that Cindy brought up actually, but also just awesome job everybody. Thank you for everything you've been saying tonight. The app that Cindy wants to start, I think that's one of the best things I've heard about tonight because it brings us all together in one sphere. We've said that word a lot tonight. The website, it sounds like it's doing what I'm sitting back here thinking the app would do, which is great, but an app is just awesome, something that we could universally have on our phones. We all are so virtual these days, and this last year has brought us more into that place of, you know, checking things online. And with all these groups, Musical.ly and the, I just forgot the name of the group, the Music Industry Group, that's really great that you're having these lists compiled and that's making its way over to the Cleveland Rocks Past, Present, Future website. I wasn't aware that's where those lists were going when I first was going to come up here with my statement. So that is essential. That Cleveland Rocks Past, Present, Future website is a place that we're all following right now because, as mentioned, Lisa has compiled a list of open mic nights, a list of photographers who are, you know, out there willing to be hired or to barter, you know, to take your photos as musicians. And there's just a lot of really great networking opportunities that are going to come from these events, as mentioned, which I think doing monthly is amazing. But the app. And what Sean said earlier, I did arrive late, but I was listening to the stream of this in my car on the way here, and so I got to hear Sean Watterson talk about the funding and the new arts organization in Cleveland, and I think it is really important to hear more about that, whether it's from Sean, I don't know where to go, I guess talk to Sean, about how we can really get our minds wrapped around that amount of money and where it's going to go, not just individually for the artists, but to make sure all of us artists are advocating for an app that Cindy can have be called the Cleveland Rocks Past, Present, Future, and that the Rock Hall can have that QR code up for that app when you walk in, and the hotels can have the QR code in addition to the Listen CLE playlist and all these other things. But I do think this one universal place that is digital, that is virtual, that is right now, basically it sounds like the website for Cleveland Rocks Past, Present, Future, that's listing all the events around Cleveland. It's not about venues competing, it's not about artists competing. You know, the example that always comes up is Nashville. There are 50 clubs on one block and every single one of them is packed. So it should never feel like artists are competing if you both have a show on a Tuesday night, or venues are competing if there's, you know, multiple shows on a Friday. It really is just about putting the information out there and everybody having the opportunity to see where they can go support, and when it's not just the musicians and the arts and culture community supporting each other, but it is the tourists coming to Cleveland and the people who aren't in the music industry. So I just wanted to put my my opinion in that I think we should really find out more about how to help support this app development and get money funneled from the arts grants that are coming in to that, and also I am very interested in how I can help personally. I'm just putting that out there. I heard the title Music Czar come up. So I'm nominating myself as the music czar of Cleveland, just putting that out there. But really, I would like to work with, whoever it is behind the Arts Council and the, the bigger political sphere of where money goes in Cleveland. And with all these ideas that we've heard tonight, making sure they're broken down and visible, and that we are all behind this campaign, and that we aren't getting lost in these separate Facebook groups or these separate, groups of 300 people are amazing, groups of 1,000 people are amazing, but there's probably tens of thousands of us in Cleveland who can advocate for these things. So I hope today is the start of that, and that's all I wanted to say, just a comment. Thank you.
Thanks for coming, everyone. I think we're going to wrap up this portion, and Cindy was just mentioning that everybody can head over to the bar and network and whatever you would like to do. So thanks for coming.
Thank you.